Fantasy football is free. You download the app, create an account, get given £100 million of completely imaginary money, spend half of it on Erling Haaland, realize you now have £4.5 million to buy the rest of your team, and then spend the next 9 months allowing 11 men who have absolutely no idea you exist to ruin your weekend. And somehow, nobody ever asks you for your card details. No subscription, no £5 monthly fee, nothing. Fantasy Premier League is completely free to play. Last season, more than 13 million people played FPL. 13 million people using a product for basically an entire football season, and the Premier League doesn't charge them a penny. So obviously I have a question. If fantasy football is free, who is making the money? Because somebody is making money. Nobody builds an app for more than 13 million people, updates player prices, calculates points every weekend, maintains servers, creates content, employs people, gives away prizes, and then says, yeah, we just really love fantasy football. The Premier League is many things. A charity is not one of them. And the answer becomes much more interesting when you realize that Fantasy Premier League does not need to make money directly. It helps the Premier League make money everywhere else. FPL is basically one gigantic machine designed to make you care about more football. Okay, let me explain. Think about how you normally watch football. If you support Barcelona, like a sensible human being, you care about Barcelona. If you support Manchester United, unfortunately, you care about Manchester United. You watch your club, maybe you watch another big match later, and that is probably it. But fantasy football completely changes your relationship with games you otherwise would not care about. Suddenly Brentford against Bournemouth matters because you have a Brentford defender. Fulham against Wolves matters because your mini-league rival has captained somebody from Wolves. You are watching Nottingham Forest and praying for a clean sheet because everybody else is blanking, and you need that £4.5 million defender you bought to do something. That is where the value starts. The Premier League's most valuable product is not a football. It's not a shirt. It's your attention. The league sells broadcasting rights for enormous amounts of money because millions of people want to watch Premier League football. Broadcasters then sell subscriptions and advertising because millions of people are watching. Sponsors pay the Premier League because millions of people are paying attention. Clubs get bigger sponsorship deals because millions of people know their players. Everything eventually comes back to one thing. How much attention can football command? And FPL gives the Premier League another reason to keep you paying attention every single week. Without fantasy football, if Manchester City are playing Coventry and you support Arsenal, maybe you don't care. With fantasy football, Haaland is your captain. Now you care deeply. Actually, you have never cared about Coventry's ability to defend more in your entire life. You're checking the starting 11. You're checking whether Haaland starts. You're checking who assisted the goal. You're checking whether he got bonus points. You're checking the app after the game. You're checking your mini-league. You're checking your friend's team. One football match has now created about 7 different reasons for you to interact with the Premier League. And they didn't have to force you to do any of this. You volunteered. This is why I think calling FPL simply a game massively understates what it actually is. FPL is a fan engagement product. The Premier League has even built major technology and commercial partnerships around its digital platforms and fan experiences. Adobe, for example, became the Premier League's official digital fan experience and creativity partner, with the partnership specifically including ways for supporters to engage with their fantasy Premier League teams. Microsoft also became the league's official cloud and AI partner for its digital platforms. There is an entire commercial ecosystem sitting around something you are playing for free. And this is where companies start seeing dollar signs. Imagine you are a company trying to advertise to football fans, not random people who might occasionally watch football, proper football addicts, people who know whether a Crystal Palace fullback got 60 minutes on Saturday, people who know that their midfielder was robbed of an assist because apparently the defender touched the ball with 3 molecules of his left boot. People who are opening a football app several times every week for almost an entire year. That is an extremely valuable audience. So even if FPL itself doesn't slap a giant advertisement over your team every 5 seconds, the engagement it creates makes the wider Premier League ecosystem more valuable to commercial partners. The Premier League already works with a group of official commercial partners and licensees, and those partnerships are valuable partly because of the enormous global audience attached to the league. FPL is another doorway into that audience. Then there is the data. And before somebody hears the word data and thinks I'm about to tell you the Premier League is selling your mother's maiden name to a man in a basement, calm down. That is not what I mean. But when millions of people use a digital product, the organization running it learns a lot about how people interact with that product. The Premier League's own privacy policy says it collects things including gameplay statistics, scores, rankings, time spent playing, and user preferences. That information can help them understand what fans care about, how they use Premier League products, and how to build better digital experiences around them. But the money around fantasy football goes much further than the official Premier League game. Because once millions of people become obsessed with fantasy football, other businesses appear around that obsession. There are fantasy websites selling premium statistics. There are tools that help you plan transfers. There are expected goals databases. There are fixture difficulty calculators. There are podcasts, YouTube channels, newsletters, Patreon communities. People literally pay other people to tell them whether they should captain Haaland. People is me. I am people. Think about how ridiculous that is for a second. The original game costs £0. Then I become so emotionally invested in this free game that I pay £5 or £10 a month for better information about the free game, just so I can top the mini league that week. Because next week, Kelvin will know to triple captain Phil Foden, when for me, he is not even in my team. Then Phil Foden somehow scores a hat trick and gets 2 assists in a City rout, and Haaland, who I captained, doesn't even play a single minute. Anyway, back to the video. That is business. It's the same reason entire industries exist around football itself. Watching a football match creates demand for shirts, news, analysis, statistics, podcasts, highlights, betting, video games, and about 400 different Twitter accounts telling you that your club is finished. Fantasy football creates its own mini economy in exactly the same way. And then we have betting companies. Now, fantasy football and gambling are obviously not the same thing. Standard FPL does not require you to stake money on whether your player scores, but commercially, the audiences can overlap. Fantasy football trains you to think about football through individual outcomes. Will this player score? Will this player assist? Will this team keep a clean sheet? How many goals are likely in this match? Suddenly, you're analyzing Brighton against Everton like you're Pep Guardiola, because your captaincy decision depends on it. Those same statistics and player-level questions are incredibly useful to betting companies. And historically, betting companies have spent enormous amounts of money trying to reach football audiences. So the more engaged, statistically obsessed, and constantly connected football fans become, the more valuable that overall audience becomes to businesses surrounding football. There is also something even more important happening here. Fantasy football creates loyalty to the league itself. The Premier League does not want you only caring about Liverpool. They want you caring about Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, City, Villa, Newcastle, Spurs, and whichever random promoted striker suddenly costs $5.5 million and has somehow scored 4 goals in 3 games. Fantasy football makes players from all 20 clubs relevant to you. You might never buy a Fulham shirt. You might never support Fulham. You might not even know where Fulham is. But if you own their goalkeeper and he is 6 minutes away from a clean sheet, congratulations. You are now the biggest Fulham supporter in Ghana. For 6 minutes. And that matters because sports leagues make more money when the entire competition is interesting, not just the biggest clubs. Broadcasters need people watching as many matches as possible. Sponsors want fans interacting as often as possible. The league wants you opening its website and app throughout the week. FPL connects all of those things together. Like, I support the best team in the world, Barcelona, but I still play FPL. I have no stake in the Prem, but best believe I know who is starting in Liverpool versus Coventry. There is another sneaky benefit: social pressure. If you play FPL alone, it's fun. If 10 of your friends create a mini-league, now you're trapped. Because quitting is no longer an option. You cannot allow your friend who captained a defensive midfielder in game week 1 to somehow finish above you. Your pride will not allow it. So even when your actual football club is having a horrible season, fantasy gives you another competition to care about. especially Tottenham fans. And those private leagues are a huge part of the game. FPL lets players create and join private leagues with friends, family, and colleagues. That means the Premier League does not even have to do all the work of bringing people back. Your friends do it for them. You recruit your friends. You remind them to play. You argue about the game. You share screenshots. You celebrate your rank. You complain when the servers are busy before a deadline. And every single one of those interactions keeps the Premier League sitting somewhere in your brain. This is why free products can be unbelievably valuable. We normally assume that if something costs nothing, then it must not make money. But some of the biggest businesses on earth give away extremely valuable products for free, because charging you directly is not the main goal. Sometimes the goal is scale. Get millions of people through the door first, then make the ecosystem around those people more valuable. Fantasy Premier League is a perfect example. The Premier League could probably charge people to play FPL. Imagine they charge just £5 for an entire season. With 13 million players, that is potentially £65 million before costs, assuming everyone stayed. Sounds wonderful. But how many people would stop playing? Maybe a lot. For example, me. Because why would I pay £5 just to captain Holland? And now you have fewer users, fewer mini-leagues, less conversation, less website traffic, less app engagement, less interest in random matches. Suddenly, that £5 might actually cost you more elsewhere than it earns directly. So instead, you remove the barrier completely. Come in, play for free, invite your friends, check your team every week. Watch more football, learn more players, care about more matches. Spend 9 months screaming because your defender conceded a goal in the 94th minute. And while you're doing all of that, the Premier League's product becomes even more difficult to ignore. So who makes money from fantasy football? Potentially almost everybody around it. The Premier League gets a gigantic engagement machine attached to its competition. Sponsors get access to an incredibly passionate football audience. Broadcasters benefit when fans have more reasons to watch matches. Statistics companies and fantasy websites can sell tools and subscriptions. Content creators build audiences talking about the game. Other football businesses get access to fans who are constantly thinking about fixtures, players, and results. You get 3 Arsenal players, 2 Manchester City players, £0.1 million left in the bank, and the completely irrational belief that this is finally the year you win your mini-league. I mean, you will win your league, right? Until Game Week 2. So the next time you open Fantasy Premier League and wonder how something used by millions of people can possibly be free, remember, free does not mean worthless. In fact, the reason FPL can afford to be free is because your attention might be worth far more than whatever subscription they could charge you. And apparently all the Premier League has to do to get that attention is give us £100 million of fake money and let us pretend we know more about football than actual managers. Which, to be fair, I do. I play a lot of Football Manager, and I'm actually good at it. I win the Champions League almost every year with Debreceni from Hungary.